movies, I moved to Austin, Texas because I was a big fan of the movie Slacker, and I wanted to make movies. I wanted to be a filmmaker like the Richard Linklater who made this movie that I loved. And I moved there, and I didn't know how to get jobs in making movies, and so I looked in the classifieds, and I couldn't find anything, and I had a lot of desire, and finally I found this job. They said cameraman needed. And so I went and I applied and I got the job, and it was at a big mega church, a Southern Baptist church in Texas. And the congregation was 1,000 people, and they needed camera people during the services to sort of scan the crowds, and when the pastor would say something that was enlightening, I was supposed to find someone that was moved or crying, and I had this, there was a manager, Bruce, who would, I would wear headphones, and Bruce would say, find someone who's really moved by the service, and I'd have to find that. And then that was Sunday morning, and then on Saturday night, the pastor would host a call-in show, and it was a nationally syndicated call-in show, and he would take calls from people who were having crises of faith. And I was camera number 2, and I would follow the pastor when he would move from his chair to the table and everything. And I didn't like the job that much, but it was a camera job. And one thing I did like was the other cameraman was this guy named Ricardo who worked in the video store in town, and he could get me free movies. And then Ricardo told me something interesting about the pastor. He said, you know, the pastor, every week he asks for a new movie, and I give him a new movie. And it turned out that the movies that the pastor would want were pornographic movies. And I thought that's kind of interesting. Like he's a Southern Baptist pastor, and I sort of filed that away. And then I'd been working there for a while, and then this one Saturday night, all my roommates, I lived in this big house, and White Zombie, the band, was coming to town. And so we had this plan. We were going to all take mushrooms and go see White Zombie that night. But the problem was I had to go to my job as cameraman for the pastor's call-in show. So my roommates convinced me that I should take the mushrooms before I go to my job, because then I'll be like in the right frame of mind right when the concert starts, because I was going to go straight from the job to the concert. So I took the magic mushrooms, and then I went to my job, and I'm like sitting there, and the first thing I have to do at the job is like assemble the camera so I can follow the pastor around. And I'm having so much trouble doing that, and I'm just like, what is this device, and where am I, and who is this strange man, and I'm just so confused by what's happening. And then finally Bruce, the manager, comes up to me and he goes, Arthur, the pastor's getting a strange vibe from you right now, and we think maybe you should go home. And I was like, I was really mad. I was like, what? You know, I can do this, Bruce. And he's like, no, Arthur, go home. So I finally get convinced to go home. And at that point, I'm like, well, I guess I should go to the White Zombie concert, but I'm kind of mad that Bruce sent me home, and I felt like I was a good camera number 2. And so I go home, and I'm like sort of sitting there, and the concert's about to start, and then I turn on the TV, and I go to the show, the pastor's show, and it's just starting up, and I see it. I'm like, who's doing camera number 2? Who's that asshole who's taking my job? And then it occurs to me, like, I could call into the show, and so I call up, right, and I like hold my nose to disguise my voice, and Bruce is the screener, and so Bruce is like, and I know how to get through the screener. I'm like, I'm having a crisis of faith, and then I get through, right, and I recognize the pastor, and the pastor's like, yes, how can I help you? And I'm like, I have this problem. I really like to watch pornography, and I see the pastor kind of like, and I'm like, I just can't help it, and then the pastor's kind of looking strangely, and then suddenly like click, and I'm off. I'm cut off. And I'm like, wow, I wonder what just happened there, and then so I'm realizing I think probably Bruce figured out it was me, and like I feel like kind of an asshole, and so then I go to the White Zombie concert, and it's all like, Satan and like the demon warp is coming alive, and like I'm on mushrooms, right? And like there's all these visions of like Satan, and I'm like, what did I just do? I like insulted Jesus and God, and I'm just feeling terrible. I feel like I've really fucked up my entire life, and so then and then the concert gets out, and then I just walk around, like I just walk around Austin, Texas all night until the sun comes up. And then and I realize it's Sunday morning and everyone's going to go to church, and I'm supposed to go to be camera number 2 at the Baptist church. So I go in the same outfit that I was wearing to the White Zombie concert, and I think I'm like still kind of tripping, and I'm like, I go over and I show up for work, and Bruce sees me and he's like, I'm surprised to see you here. And then the pastor's there, and he comes up to me and he takes my hand, he takes it in both hands, and he says, it was Jesus who said that forgiveness is divine. And I think, I'm like, oh wow, okay. And he's like, so we're gonna give you another chance. And I said, oh, okay, all right. And then I'm thinking, like, did he know that I called him and about the pornography and everything? And so then I go up to and the camera number 2 is way up in like this roost over the crowd, and I'm like looking over the crowd, and the sermon starts, and he's giving this really kind of weird sermon about something about the Abraham or something like that, and I'm like, I'm like looking, and my job, like Bruce keeps like talking in my ears. At this point, I've been up all night, and he's talking. He's like, find someone who's moved, and I'm like scanning over the crowd, and I just start to feel really, really nauseous, and finally, I'm still embarrassed about this. So finally, I drop the camera and throw up on my pants and on the side and everything, and Bruce is like, what's going on with camera number 2? What's going on with camera number 2? And I say, I can't do it, Bruce. I quit. I can't do it anymore. And I run out of there, and I lost that job forever. So that was what happened with my worst job ever. And the final thing I'd like to say is vote no on fluoridation for the water and toilet.